has been, Miss Fairfax?
Pray, don't talk to me about the weather, Mr. Worthing. Whenever people talk to me about the weather, I always feel quite certain that they mean something else. And that makes me feel so nervous.
I do mean something else.
I thought so. In fact, I am never wrong.
And that would like to take advantage of Lady Bracknell's temporary absence.
I would certainly advise you to do so. Mama has a way of coming back suddenly into our room that I have often to speak to her about.
Miss Fairfax, ever since I met you, I have admired you more than any other girl I have ever met before I met you. More than any girl I have ever met since I met you? I'm so stupid.
Yes, I'm quite well aware of the fact. And I often wish that in public, at any rate, you have been more demonstrative. For me, you have always had an irresistible fascination. My idea has always been to love someone of the name of Earnest. There is something in that name that inspires absolute confidence. And I knew I was destined to love you.
You really love me, Gwendoline?
Passionately.
Darling, you don't know how happy you've made me.
My own Earnest. My own Earnest? And Charlie. And Tom. And Peter. And... well, my own Earnest.
Gwendoline, I must get christened at once. I mean, we must get married at once. There's no time to be lost.
Married, Mr. Worthing?
Well, surely. You know that I love you, and you led me to believe, Miss Fairfax, that you were not absolutely indifferent to me.
I adore you, but you haven't proposed to me yet. Nothing has been said at all about marriage. The subject has not even been touched on.
Well, may I propose to you now?
I think it would be an admirable opportunity. And to spare you any possible disappointment, Mr. Worthing, I'm fully determined to accept you.
Gwendoline.
Yes, Mr. Worthing. What have you got to say to me?
You know what I have to say to you.
Yes, but you don't say it.
Gwendoline, will you marry me?
Of course I will, darling. How long you have been about it? I'm afraid you have had very little experience about how to propose.
My own one. I have never loved anyone in the world but you.
Oh, what wonderfully blue eyes you have, Earnest. They are quite blue. I hope you will look at me just like that always, especially when there are other people present.
Mr. Worthing! Rise, sir, from this semi-recumbent posture. It is most indecorous.
Mama! I must beg you to retire. This is no place for you. Besides, Mr. Worthing has not quite finished yet.
Finish what? May I ask?
I am engaged to Mr. Worthing.
You are not engaged to anyone. When do you become engaged to someone, me or your father will inform you of the fact. And now, I have a few questions to you, Mr. Worthing. While I am making these inquiries, you, Gwendoline, will wait for me below on the carriage.
Well, at least I could have a good time with my chauffeur. You know what I mean. Mama!
On the carriage, Gwendoline.
Yes, Mama.
You can take a seat, Mr. Worthing.
Thank you, Lady Bracknell, but I prefer standing.
I feel bound to tell you that you are not down on my list of eligible young men. However, I am quite ready to enter your name so your aunt will be what a really affectionate mother requires. Do you smoke?
Well, yes, I smoke, I must admit.
I am glad to hear it. I mean, she'll have an occupation of some kind. How old are you?
29.
29. A very good age to be married at. I have always been of opinion that a man who desires to get married should know either everything or nothing. Which do you incomes?
My income's about 7,000 or 8,000 a year.
In land or investments?
In investments, chiefly.
That is satisfactory. Land has ceased to be either a profit or a pleasure. It gives one position and prevents one from keeping it up. That's all that can be said about land.
I have a country house with some land, of course, attached to it.
A country house? You have a town house, I hope. A girl with a simple and spoiling nature like Gwendoline could hardly be expected to reside in the country.
Well, I own a house in Belgrave Square.
What number in Belgrave Square?
149.
The fashionable site! But well, are your parents living?
I have lost both my parents.
Both? But who was your father? He was evidently a man of some wealth. Was he born in what the radical papers call the purple of commerce? Or did he rise from the ranks of the aristocracy?
I am afraid I really don't know. The fact is, Lady Bracknell, I said I had lost my parents. It would be nearer the truth to say that my parents seem to have lost me. I don't actually know who I am by birth. I was found.
Found?
The late Mr. Thomas Cardew, an old gentleman of a very charitable and kindly disposition, found me. He found me in a handbag.
A handbag?
Yes, Lady Bracknell, I was in a handbag. An ordinary handbag, in fact, found in the clockroom of Victoria Station.
The club room at Victoria Station? The club room at Victoria Station? Oh my God! Mr. Watson, I confess I feel somewhat bewildered by what you have just told me. Being found in a handbag, it could hardly be regarded as an assured basis for a recognized position in good society.
May I ask you then what you would advise me to do? I need hardly say I would do anything in the world to ensure Gwendoline's happiness.
I will strongly advise you, Mr. Watson, to try and acquire some relations as soon as possible before the season is quite over.
Well, I don't see how I could possibly manage to do that. I can produce the handbag at any moment. It is in my dressing room, at home. I really think that should satisfy you, Lady Bracknell.
You can hardly imagine that I and Lord Bracknell would dream of allowing our only daughter to marry into a cloakroom and form an alliance with a person? Good morning, Mr. Watson.
Good morning. Definitely, she likes me. I know that.